You know what I mean? 912, highly anticipated call here about to go down with the Revenue Tax Director, Dafne Shimizu. Thanks for joining us this morning, Dafne.
Thanks. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi. Good
Hi,
morning. I hear you.
Morning.
We're all hoping you have some good news.
Well, I think one of the biggest questions is that I've been asked is, have checks gone out? You know what? I'm getting a little feedback. I'm not sure if you're hearing that.
You sound good on our end, Daf.
Okay, great. Okay, so one of the questions that's been asked is, are checks in the mail? And so, yes, Revenue Tax did print several thousands of checks this past week, and Treasurer of Guam received those yesterday, and my understanding is that there are payments that are in the mail. I don't have the final information on the final numbers right now. We will release that information, but again, as Governor did mention, we would be sending out checks this week, and there are payments that are going out. If they've not already gone out, they're going out today for sure.
Okay, and
that's great news.
So, but we're still looking at a total of $11 million that's going to be paid out in local funds.
That's what I understand.
Okay.
Yes.
What about the latest from the IRS on the remaining money?
Sure.
Have you heard anything from them?
Well, and thank you so much for just being patient with me this week. And it's been very intense in terms of discussions with them. Like some nights I'm on the phone with them 11 o'clock, midnight, and then I'm up again at 5 in the morning just discussing with them, because trying to make sure that, so I try to catch them at the beginning and end of their days. So, making sure that we're moving forward with it. We don't have, outside of the fact that we're continuing to discuss the implementation plan. We're still not finalized, but, we're continuing to do that. And at the same time, there's a lot of background work that still had to happen. And in fact, part of, what we had to do to make sure that we can cut these checks in this past week or this week is making sure that we set up our system so that it was ready. So simultaneously, while we're discussing these things with the IRS and also working to get clarification on various items that and how the CARES Act applies to our U.S. Guam residents, we were also on the background and even through Easter working with our IT team, with our IT vendors, just to make sure that we could stand up our system and that our system is ready. And I'm very proud to say that, our team has worked to make sure that it's ready. And, I believe that, for the most part, once we do get the advance payments and our final implementation plan, the money's coming, the cover over monies from the U.S. Treasury, and we get the implementation finalized, that, we'll be able to begin to do our mass payments out to our people. So that's great news to me. And there's a lot of work that goes into all of this, and those are the things that I try to stay involved at all levels. So I work with the IT team, I'm working with our tax administration team, and I'm closely just monitoring as well the people who are actively working. And if you don't mind, if I just can give a shout out to some of my team members who have been working and kind of supervising, to Nora and Norma Jean and Rose and just Craig and everybody who has been coming in and making sure that we're safe. We have our compliance officer who's going around and making sure everybody's practicing social distancing, making sure that our people, are safe. We have people in our administration group like Marianne and Jason who have been there every day checking the mail. And so, I'm very fortunate. We have a really dedicated team. As I mentioned to Chris a few days ago, when I had the opportunity to just talk with him a little bit, this is very personal to me. And this idea of taking care of our people is very important and personal to me, but also to our team. When we had to activate the team after the CARES Act was passed, of course, given the whole situation with, of course, we're trying to stay congruent with stay at home, but we're having to be activated so that we can make sure that these background functions that need to happen so people can be paid these economic impact payments. Those things, we have these very committed people who, when I called, they're like, don't worry, Dafne, we're going to come in. We're going to come in and we're going to do our best. We've always, people who have been there for 20, 30 years. And so I'm very proud of our team, and I want to say thank you to them. And I'll also say thank you to our community for being patient with us. There's a lot that's going into making sure this happens, but I promise you that we're doing everything possible to make sure that these payments get out. And as soon as we get the implementation plans finalized, and again, I've been meeting and talking with IRS daily, sometimes more than once, sometimes even like 2 or 3 times a day, in effort to get this going for our community. I promise you, we are doing everything possible to make sure that this happens. We recognize the importance to our people. I'm not someone that comes from a lot of money. I know what it's like to, and I went to Mauricio Elementary School. I know what it's like to come from a community that's very.
So did I, Daphne. So did I.
We're very, I'm a country girl, so I know what it's like to be in need, and I have family members who are in need, and so I really, see the needs of our people. Right, and so, of course, in order for us to be able to do this, yes, first of all, yes, it's based on 2018 filings, and so in order for us to be able to even make payments, we had to look at a universe of returns that was basically complete, right? We know that there's a few things that happened when we came into 2019. One, because of the coronavirus, the IRS extended the deadline for filing and payment for individual income tax returns for 2019 to July 15th. So that may have caused some people initially to not file 2019, right away. So we had to look at a universe of returns that was, basically complete, which was 2018, and we utilized the 2018 as the basis for this. But not to say that going forward, of course, just again, the CARES Act does allow the use of 2018 and 2019. We're utilizing 2018 as the primary basis only because we recognize that that's where we're going to be able to make the most impact to our people. And the CARES Act also does say that, and it was Congress's intent and our president's intent to make sure that we get these payments out as rapidly as possible. And it's our intent to make sure that our people are taken care of as quickly as possible. So we utilize that population.
Daph, what about people who need to file the 2019 taxes? Can you just go through what options are available to them in terms of getting the docs and then getting them over to you guys?
Sure. So for 2019 returns, there is actually the opportunity for people to file online if they are able to. The online filing option is available for individuals or for people who don't have dependents and who only have W-2 or 1099 income. So, you can get onto myguamtax.com. You can register. I've actually done that myself, so I could test the system. It works. So you could file online. And if you don't fall in the category where you can file online, then you can, get your return prepared. You could drop it at the Dropbox, which is at our Barragata office. We have a Dropbox. You can mail it to us. You can mail it to us using the U.S. Postal Service, or you can, if there's a payment due with it, you can actually go to the Treasurer of Guam cashier at the ITC building because they've been open this whole time. So those are the 4 ways. You can either do it online if you fall into that certain category of people that can file online. You can, again, go to our Dropbox and drop your payment and your return. You can go to or mail it to us using the Postal Service, or you can go to the Treasurer of Guam if there's a payment due. So those are the mechanisms for doing that.
Daph, just to go back to the individual payments, are you guys using tax year 2018 and 2019 filings to pay out those $1,200 and $2,400 payments?
Right. I mean, we had, again, what we needed to do was we needed to look at a population that was primarily like fully complete, right? So we looked at 2018, but again, if somebody hasn't filed a 2018 return, but they filed a 2019 return, then we're going to look at 2019, okay. And that's how that will work. Okay. And again, so the way that there has to be some understanding, I guess, in terms of the infrastructure of our tax administration agency here on Guam versus the tax administration or versus the IRS. The IRS has a 80% or more online filing rate. Right. We have about a 3% or less.
Wait, say that again. 3%?
We probably are at like a 3% or less, at least before this situation. That's what I understand. Right. So in terms of online filings, of course, for the IRS, if they have 80% or more, this is what I understand is 80% or more, that, for them, they don't have a lot of manual processing that's involved with regards to what they need to pay out. For us, we do have. And so, there are certain limitations because of our structure. And so we recognized, again, if we needed to make out payments as soon as possible to our people, that we had to look at a year that was complete so that we can impact our people the most and the most quickly. And so that's what we did. But there is a true-up mechanism for this, right? So, and we still have to identify and provide official guidance on that, but there is a true-up mechanism. So for individuals, say, regardless of the year, say 2019 or 2018 is used, there's a mechanism for truing up. The reality is this is actually an advance credit, meaning that this is a credit that is paid out for a 2020 tax year, but the 2020 tax year hasn't been completed yet. So in the perfect world, we would use your 2020 tax information in order to be able to determine your eligibility. But because obviously we're not in a perfect world and we need to make sure the money gets out, you're basing eligibility on another year. So we have to point to another year. And that's really, kind of how this is all working. But again, even if people, for example, say I'm somebody who made, I'm single and instead of getting $1,200, I got $1,100. When I, for example, this is an example, file my 2020 tax return, if my income level is such that I should have actually received $1,200 instead, then I will get the difference. And so there is a true-up mechanism. But again, the system, when we do tax administration is about, doing our best to make sure that we administer fairly. And, of course, when we make decisions, we look at where we can impact our people, one, the most quickly, and two, impact the most people. And when we make decisions, again, that's how we go about in doing that.
Right. Daph, I had a question here. How about first-time filers that just filed this year?
First-time filers. So meaning that they just filed their 2019 return for the first time?
I guess. I don't know. They didn't put much in.
All right. So for somebody, again, if you filed either a 2018 or 2019 return already, there's nothing that you have to do. If you filed a 2018 tax return already, you don't have to do anything. If you filed your 2019 tax return already, you don't have to do anything in order to get on the list. That population of people is already on the list.
Okay.
However, you must file something, you must file in order to be able to get on the list. The IRS actually, and that is for people who actually have earned income. Now, the IRS in this past week did launch its online portal for what they're calling non-filers. And non-filers are basically those people who fall below the income thresholds, meaning that for a single person, I made less than $12,200. And because of that, I didn't have to file a return. Now, one of the most important thing is Guam residents, U.S. territory residents do not qualify to use the IRS online portal. So please don't go and register and file there. Mm-hmm. Everything that is going to be paid out for Guam residents is going to come out of Guam. So right. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we're actually developing a form, a non-filer form, and it's actually simulated or kind of patterned against what the IRS's form is. And that form will be released in this next week. And that form will be for those individuals, because I know the last time I had the opportunity to talk with you and Sabrina, that there was a question posed, if I receive only social assistance and I don't have earned income, how do I qualify, or what do I have to do? And so that non-filer form will be what is going to be utilized for individuals who are in that situation. They'll be able to utilize that and file it. It's going to be a manual form for now, but I'm a big advocate for working to do online. So, in the background, even though because we're trying to get these out as soon as possible, we're going to have a manual option, but we're going to be working to get hopefully the online versions up within, next several weeks.
Right. Daph, if you could, when you get that non-filer form, could you send that over to us so we can pop it up? Because I got a call from a lady who's on public assistance, disabled, and she actually called last week, and it just popped into my head when you talked about non-filers, and she was asking how she would, be able to qualify for any of this, the stimulus or the advance or any of that stuff. So she hasn't filed, so she would have to lodge that non-filer form with you guys.
Yes, she would have to she would have to go ahead and fill out and sign a non-filer form and file it with us. And I will absolutely make sure, Chris and Sabrina, that you guys get that form as soon as we have it, and we'll release it again in this next week. We're just reviewing it. It's already basically prepared. It's in draft format. We just have to review it once more before we release it to the public.
And what about people who paid taxes? Do they still get any type of stimulus?
You know, the economic impact payment is not based on your tax liability. The economic impact payment is based on your adjusted gross income,
right,
or what is recorded on your. So people who might have had so whether you had to pay income tax, or sorry, when you filed your return, or whether you got a refund, that is not related to your eligibility for the economic impact payment.
And then also, Daphne, just if you could confirm, because I heard you say this before, deductions, if you owe government of Guam any type of money at the hospital or whatever, that's not going to be taken out of these stimulus checks, right?
Right, and so, you know, and thank you for asking that question, because, you know, the AG's office actually reached out to me to make sure that, you know, with regards to any garnishments, that the child support piece was going to continue to be garnished. And we confirmed with them that, yes, you know, our read of the law is that child support payments are the only garnishments. So, you know, if you owe outstanding taxes, if you also owe for any other thing that we would normally garnish for, those are not going to be garnished for. It will the only garnishments for these economic impact payments are going to be for child support.
Daphne, and I wanted to ask again, sorry, Bree's got a question, but
It's okay.
I've been working on this here. So the individual payments are $1,200 per tax filer, or $2,400 for joint or married filers, and then there's also $500 per child. Now, how does the $500 per child work? Is that just based on who claims the child or the children?
Well, first of all, it has to be, so the dependent has to be claimed on the taxpayer's return. So you must claim that individual or that child who has to be under age 17, so 16 and under. That 16 and under child dependent has to be claimed on your return in order for you to get the $500. And there is a phase out for that $500, an income phase out, but it's higher than the income phase out for the regular $1,200 or $2,400.
And then I wanted to again, you talked about the income phase out. I know it's up to a certain amount that you get the full $1,200. Can you break that down for us? And then what happens if you make over that amount, and how do they then calculate how much your stimulus will be?
Okay, and you know, good question, because you know what, even for me, when I read the law, I thought this is very confusing. But when I looked at the mechanics of it, and I kind of used my little pencil and paper to try to figure it out, it made it much more simple. So how it works is, whether you're married filing joint, whether you're single or head of household, the income threshold, the economic impact payments start to get reduced. And how that works is, so for every $100 that you are over the threshold, you get reduced by $5. So, for example, if I made $75,100, then instead of getting $1,200 in an economic impact payment, I would get $1,200 minus $5, which would be $1,195.
So, Daphne, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the cutoff is it $75,000 annually?
So $75,000 is right. That's where the level where you're going to get the full $1,200 if you're a single person. But again, for every $100 that you go up, you subtract out $5.
Okay.
So, and that's the same. The same goes with if you're head of household or if you're married filing joint. For married filing joint, if you would get $2,400 if you were making $150,000 or less. If you make $150,100, then you take out $5 again from the $2,400. Again, that is for every $100, it gets reduced by $5.
Okay.
And again, it's $500 per dependent.
Correct.
Right?
It's $500 for dependent child that is under age 17. So that's a 16-year-old and under. I mean, and on that note, you know, I mean, there have been articles. We try to stay kind of in touch with what's happening. You know, I believe that, you know, of course, after the CARES Act was passed, that, you know, that there were certain gaps that were still identified. Like, for example, like for me, I have if I have a child who's in college who I pay, is still reliant upon me 100% for their, you know, living expenses, the CARES Act does not, the $500 will not kick in for that individual, because the child dependent is for The child dependent $500 is really for those child dependents who are under age 17.
Okay.
Okay.
And
There was a question here. Will a child born in 2019 still qualify for a stimulus, a $500 stimulus check?
Right, and so again, that's where the true-up mechanism will kick in, right? For anybody who may not have received the full amount for whatever reason, it could be because my income was higher in the year that we utilized versus again the following year. There will be a mechanism for making sure that people are made whole. I don't have again the final guidance on what that will be. We'll issue that hopefully very soon so that we can make sure people, have that information. But definitely there's a mechanism for ensuring that people are made whole, and, and that's important to us as well.
Mm-hmm. And I guess really the one question that everybody wants to know is like how soon. I know the governor during the press briefing last week, when she announced that the advance payments would come out by the end of this week, she did kind of indicate that, based on IRS approval, she was hoping within 2 weeks. So to get the remaining amount, which would be next week. So are we still looking at that, or?
Well, so I mean, I guess with regards to what was announced, my understanding is that what was announced is that within a couple of weeks of the implementation plan being approved, that's when we should be able to start seeing the mass payments be made. That still stands true. Okay. The idea, though, or at what point the implementation plan will be approved, that's something that is outside of our control. I am definitely, again, like I said, in active communication with IRS at all times, and I'm grateful to our counterparts. I mean, like even at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Guam time, they messaged me, which means that that's about 11 o'clock p.m. their time. And then the same stands true for me when it's like 11 o'clock midnight our time. I'm also communicating with them. So, through the years, our team has developed this really great rapport, and I've had the opportunity to also develop my own relationships with our federal counterparts. And, of course, it's been helpful that we've had this great rapport. And so, we're constantly communicating. And like I mentioned, I can assure our community, and I promise you, this EIP, these economic impact payments to our people, is very important to me. It's very personal to me. I've been actually asking people to pray for me because I want to make sure that whatever decisions that I'm having to make or recommendations I make to our governor, they're good ones, because in the end, I really care about taking care of our people. I recognize that our people are in need. I feel the needs of our people. I mean, it impacts me personally because, I was born and raised here. This is my home. And so I can assure you we're doing everything possible to get the implementation plan approved. And, we've been working also internally to make sure that our IT infrastructure is set. And our team has been activated to make sure that, that we're processing and that we're, going to make sure that once the implementation plan is approved, we receive the monies, that, we can pull the trigger and we can move forward in making sure our people are paid as soon as possible.
Gun it! Pull the trigger! So that's what you're saying. So, sorry, I'm just trying to lighten it up a little bit.
I tend to be very serious.
I know.
So, this is just...
I think passionate. Passionate.
Yeah, and people feel it, Daphne, and that's what we're really... And I think it's responsible of you to not put a timeline out there. I mean, Dave Delasola does the same thing. It's really, contingent on the feds. But so let me ask you, when that implementation plan is approved with the IRS, from that point forward, what do we need to do, and what kind of timeline from that point forward, Daph? I'm not asking you to predict when it... Okay, good.
So, thank you. No, that's good. And thank you. Again, you're right. For me, if I start putting a number or a timeline out, and it doesn't happen, then, I honestly don't know. It's totally out of our control. Right. But from the time the implementation plan is finalized, and because basically for me, I believe for the most part, the majority of our, 90% of our IT infrastructure is really set up already. We just have a few minor things here and there we need to work on. So once the implementation plan is finalized, then of course the monies get covered over to Guam. And then once those monies get covered over, and again, that could take, it could take a couple weeks. Then when the monies come over, then we'll be able to make those mass payments to our people. And that's, when we'll see. But if you see what's also happening stateside, you'll notice the IRS is actually processing payments in waves.
Right.
And that's likely going to be how we're also going to have to do it as well. And
you should do it alphabetically, Daph.
We should do it alphabetically?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah. You know why, right?
okay, I don't want to say anything because I'm either an M or an F.
Right, you're way.
Well, thank you so much, Daphne.
No, well, thank you more. Sabrina and Chris, I really have to say, one, I want to thank you guys for your patience. I know it's been difficult. I've been trying to get on, but it's been a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your patience. But I also want to thank the community for their patience. And I want to assure you that we're here at Rev and Tax to try to help you the best we can. Our team is actually there working to make sure that we are able to answer questions. So if people have questions, don't hesitate to call us. We have great people there who, probably some of the most patient people I've ever met in my life, really, who are there to help our people and to answer the questions you have. We may not have all the questions that you answers at this time, but you know what? We will do our best to answer based on what we have. And once we have, the answers for the questions you have, we're going to provide those to you.
Thank you, Daphne. And since you asked me to pray for you, I always include you in my prayers, and I'll do so again today, okay?
All right. No, I appreciate it. You know what? I could use all those prayers, and I really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, God bless you, Daphne, and wash your hands, okay?
Bye.
Bye. There you go, Daphne Shimizu from the Department of Rev and Tax.
She's great, man. It's really good to hear from these directors, and even like people like Antone. Again, you hear it in their voice. You can feel like they really care, and they're working their hardest. They're a part of our community, and they know what they need to do.
So important to hear. I mean, people, you can tell when someone's being real with you, and we have nothing.